Welcome back. Western Illinois University President Kristi Mindrup says the school has gone through a whirlwind of change this year, and she's less than a week now into her term without the interim title. And News Since 5, WGEM's Dylan Smith sat down with her today.
Yes, when Kristi Mindrup took over as interim president in April, she was met immediately with financial challenges. The budget was in a deficit of $20 million, and from the beginning, Mindrup has said financial stability is her top priority.
8 months later.
Financial stability, I think, is the foundation of all we do at the university.
And the message remains the same. This week is Kristi Mindrup's first full week without interim in her title.
Low Mullins? Yes.
And the path to it has been an uphill climb.
These are the right people at the right time.
In July, nearly 40 faculty members received layoff notices. A few months later, the number more than doubled in an effort to financially stabilize Western Illinois University. Mindrup has been a part of a number of informal conversations this fall with faculty and staff called Insight and Innovations. She says the goal is to bounce ideas off of each other to create the best path forward.
My style is collaborative. And I think the best outcomes come through collaboration. And we have experts all across the faculty and staff of Western Illinois University that can contribute to paving our path forward.
I asked Mindrup if more cuts are a possibility. She says they're evaluating what measures can be taken to have the budget balanced in 2025. In the meantime, Mindrup is now Western's first female president, starting at WIU almost 30 years ago as a clerk. She thinks it carries a message to students.
I think this opens their eyes and might inspire them to imagine themselves doing something like this someday as well.
And before becoming even the interim president, Mindrup served as the vice president of the Quad Cities campus. Daniel.
And Mindrup's contract will be ratified at the Board of Trustees meeting in March.